course's tutorial on how to take, images of a project, photographs of a project in JPEG found on the web or whatever, and distorting and warping them away in a way that's more useful to bring into Rhino and have as kind of a background for tracing over more specific information that you might find in a plan or elsewhere. So to start with this, just looking at this just for the video's sake, we have a couple of different images that I found of this project. This one is pretty close. This one is not going to require a ton of warping. This is pretty close to vertical. It's shot with a lens that's very kind of zoomed in, very far back. It's closer to that infinite distance, obviously not there, but closer than say a fisheye or an iPhone taken from right kind of at the base of this. So it's closer than something like this, but it's still not perfect. We can see just with our eyeball test that this is pretty close to horizontal, but this bottom line of the base is at a different angle. So this will require some, but an image like this, which contains a lot more information about the material assembly of this, that in the first image is covered with a shroud, is much, the verticals, the angles are much further off, both vertically and horizontally. And so having kind of a range of images that kind of do different things is helpful as well. I find it helpful to have one that's pretty close, even if it is an actual section drawing that you're bringing into Photoshop to use as kind of a scaffolding to distort the more warped drawing on is helpful. This was my here, I'm going to close this actually, but I'm going to just open up a new file in Photoshop. We're going to go, yes, 300. I like that setting. 11 by 17 is fine. I'm going to call it the distort distort workflow tutorial. So we just have this blank canvas. I am going to start by importing a few of those photos. Generally, I do place embedded if it's just a few, so that I don't have to deal with links. But now we're just diving into the menu where is it, teaching? Where we have those images. So I'm going to bring two in. I'll bring this one in first. Give a moment. Fine. I could adjust this a little bit as needed, but I'll just have this one image on this guy, on this page, so that's fine for me. So I am kind of approving the scale that it's being brought in. You can see that's on an independent layer. And then what I'm going to do is where is that? That's also in the same zone, so I will bring another image in. I'm going to bring this one because this is the image that has all the information about the kind of masonry that's happening. Great. Okay, so I'll bring this one, down a little bit. We're going to mess with this more precisely in a moment, but just to have them both in here. One other just mini comment on the embedded versus linked. It's this probably is intuitive, but when you embed a lot of images, your file gets really heavy and can be difficult to work with. So if you're, if we were bringing in, say, I don't know, more than 5 full-size, high-quality images, I would probably be working with that linked tool. You just have to be careful about keeping your kind of names the same and sometimes have to relink things. So the first step here, I'm gonna just hide this guy, and I want to get this thing. I want to get the top edge of this, the bottom edge of this, and the sides. I want to all be square. Because if you think about it, if the kind of face that we're looking at is exactly square, we don't have to be super precise about like, oh, is the base of this thing printed on 11 by 17 paper? Is that exactly to the scale? Like, is that the correct length of our project? Because in Rhino, we can kind of scale in one dimension, either the width or the vertical, without screwing up the angle on the top or on the bottom. Like if, similar to if you have drawn, a square in Rhino, you can, scale it in one dimension or scale it in the other dimension, and the corners are still right angles. So it's like we're just gonna like start with this as our scaffolding, get this into like, all good 90 degrees, and then the final kind of fitting this to the dimensions that we found of our project through our other research can happen in Rhino. But again, Rhino is not good at like we want to like pull corners and do weird stuff with the rasterized image. This will make sense as I'm going through. But the first step I want to do, this was your question, Bryn, I believe, is the guides. Honestly, the quickest and dirtiest way of doing guides, but that I actually really, is how I do it on a project like this. You just go up to you guys see where my cursor is? You just go up to the kind of the ruler zone and click and just pull it down. It's super intuitive. It's great. So we'll do another one for the base. And I'm actually going to have it up here just because I think it will be, the exact moment where this touches down is a little bit harder to see on the base than it is about kind of where where this like rim turns up. And then we're going to do the same thing coming across. So I'm just going roughly to where the corners or the sides of this project are. So you can see this is, especially on the vertical angles, is very close, So this is not going to require a ton of warping, which is a good thing. Obviously, the other one will require more. Another thing to kind of consider here is that what we're looking at is not the same as this. So there is this curtain, this shroud that covers the masonry buildup of this project. So because of that, I'm gonna cheat slightly. I'm gonna bring this in a little bit. I'm gonna say like right here, or actually, it was actually in a pretty good location before. Okay. It will be more kind of noticeable on the other one. But okay, so here's what we're gonna do. So the tool, so you can do Control T at any point, which is, I believe it's called the free transform tool. So yeah, again, this is blocking. I'm gonna have to do this a little bit weird because it's blocking like an important, the record thing is blocking this. I can't really see it here. Let me pull this down there. Basically this, as you're doing warping and similar commands, this little bar here is important to kind of approve the changes you're making. But so again, let me just show you how I got into that. Here we can like move this around. I'm gonna undo that. But in Photoshop, the kind of alias or almost hotkey of modifying the scale or how the perspective, whatever, of a layer or an object within a layer, you select it. So we have this faint blue line around it, and then Control T, and then basically I'm able to enlarge or reduce it. If I'm not holding anything else with my hand, it does it proportionally. If I hold shift, it allows me to basically break the format that the image was imported in, which does have kind of uses, as you'll see with the when we get the other more messed up image in here. But I'm just gonna not approve that. So it will go back to this original. For this kind of fine tuning, the more important tool is one that I don't actually, maybe there is, I don't think there is a hot, a hotkey for it, but it's the distort tool. So again, that's edit, perspective, distort. These all kind of do slightly different things, and you can play around with it. Like some of them allow you to like pull a corner up in kind of like a curved, non-linear way. They all have kind of different uses. Perspective allows you to, I have seen people use the perspective tool for what I'm doing. It basically like pushes, it like almost like pushes the back of the image. You can kind of create false perspective effects, but I find it a little trickier to work with. So we're just going to do this distort tool. And then what we're going to do is we're going to grab a corner, and you'll notice now that I can, it stays, you'll notice the angles are changing, but the kind of location of this corner is adjustable. This is the only point of the image that's moving. So this is locked in the same position. You can't see it because it's just off the screen, but this bottom right one is also locked. But what that means is that 3 angles are going to be changing as you do this, like of the picture. This one here, the one that I'm kind of pinned to, and then the bottom one. And so I'm just going to kind of like pull this. You kind of have to chase your tail a little bit and do things multiple times. But here, I'm pulling this just in a slightly different location. And if you notice that, now that right side is really just kind of laser aligned, or oh, there we go. Very closely aligned to the guide that I dragged across. I'm going to zoom out a little bit just so it's more clear. We're going to do the same thing over on this corner so that basically this top edge is straight and the top of this vertical over here is aligned with the guide. So, we got to approve that change we made. I mean, you could do multiple at once. I find it helpful to do these one at a time because it makes undoing just a little, makes it a little easier to not mess up, I think. And so we're going to bring this up a little bit. And that is pretty dang close. You can see now this is vertical. The corner here is right where we want it in that kind of aligned with that edge. I'm going to prove that. Let's see. And so you'll notice that doing that modification slightly brought it's tough to see, but it's slightly brought, or it's actually pretty close to what it was. It might not just be a one shot at each. Sometimes it modifies. Like when we bring this edge down pretty drastically, it will probably bring this out of, the straight. So you have to kind of go around a couple of times, but just doing that again. Distort. I'm going to now bring this corner down. It's pretty close. See, yeah, this is now a little bit off. I'm going to not follow my advice and just do multiples because I don't want to have to keep clicking this and going back over. But we'll go down here. This is a kind of more radical one because that was a little further off. And then this guy has to come back a little bit. So it's not like a super clean, you do it once and it's perfect. Like it definitely takes a little bit of massaging to do this. You guys see what I'm like, does everyone see what I'm like trying to achieve here? I'm just like trying to align this black with the guides that I've given myself. Okay, oh, maybe a little bit more in this top corner. And this will be like, how much you do this is kind of a question for you guys and your projects, where like right now, for me, this is good enough because all I really am trying to get out of this is eventually when I do the same warps to this, I'm just trying to like throw lines across that I know are horizontal, that I can wrap the whole building in, and I'm not going to be using this as, you know, to draw fine detail work on this door. But if you're, say, working with a smaller project where, you know, you are going to have to like zoom into that higher scale, you might have to kind of pay a little bit more attention to, you know, really kind of zoom in and make sure you're locked in. Okay, so we have our, I'm going to hide this for a moment. We have this kind of locked in where we want it. I'm going to lock this layer by just clicking. Wait, maybe I have to right click. Lock layer. There's like a hotkey for it. Fine. Okay. Oh, that's another tutorial. Just right click, lock. So now basically I can't accidentally mess up any of the things that I've done. It's also worth noting that now this thing has been kind of rescaled, even if when we look out and we see this selection, if I now use that Control T free transform thing, it's going to keep all of the distortion effects that I've done, and it will scale it in the new kind of vertical image that I've created. Let me actually just show that. So like if I do this and I want to like resize it, I'm not losing any of the work at kind of squaring this thing off, which is great. I'm not going to accept that change though. Lock. It's a can of worms. It's like it's because of the characteristics of this object and that it's like how I brought it in. There are, if this was like full Photoshop time, like there are ways that you can set things up so that this functions more like Rhino, where you can just like toggle on, toggle off. But like it's not. I don't think it's worth it for this one. If that is really annoying to you guys, I can show you, but it takes a little longer. Okay, so here's our other image. So we have this. Obviously, this doesn't fit at all. Also, it's kind of like we're not really able to see the base because, like, you know, there's all these people in the way. So this is going to be a little trickier. What I want to start with this one though is let's just get the verticals pretty close, and then we'll take a look at how we can kind of make our best guess judgment on where to kind of place this vertically. So let's start actually with the top, or top-ish, because of this kind of the way the photo is and this is all sitting. It's a little bit more clear like where it turns the corner. So just for the purposes here, I'm going to place this kind of right on the corner there. Then over here, we're going to basically try to bring this across to here. So this is really, at a certain point, I'm going to kind of, you know, it really is a similar process. So window, view. So I'm going to go to, oh man, let me actually pause this for 1 second. Okay, we're back. So it's a similar thing that we're doing to before. You know, we're just, this one, because it is, you know, so much further away from being square to start, is definitely going to require more massaging. But it's the same process where we're kind of just going around the horn, you know, adjusting. As needed. And then each time I kind of click this, it's going to bring it back in. So I think this is like, that's pretty close on the verticals, right? But now the question is like, okay, this corner, because it's part of the image, we know that we're going to have to like pin to this crossing. But it's less, you know, we'll be able to kind of trace that across, and basically the top corner that's missing here will kind of eventually end up here. But then the question is like, okay, well, where do we put the bottom of this thing? For that, I think a useful tool is kind of referring back to that, you know, starting image we had. And so, but how do we do that at the same time? What I do for this is I'll reduce the opacity of the top image, and kind of, it's a little bit of a back and forth of like reducing, hiding, trying to find a point that we'll be able to like pin this to. So if I bring this back up now, or even just get it out of the way, it's like, okay, this, we have all these people kind of congregating at the bottom of this thing. Down here, we're able to see, you got to kind of take other clues. Basically what I'm trying to figure out is like, does this base, see how it's kind of roughly aligned with this like course of mortar? Is that like this line, or is that the line below that's cut here? And so I'm looking for kind of other cues, because obviously this is largely hides the masonry, but you can look through and be like, oh, near the bottom, there's this thin slice on this side. And, you know, given the fact that we have this person standing here, they're a little bit off of the side of the building. This gives us general perspective. I think it's going to be either this one or this one, but then we look at this image, we see someone standing, you know, this is like the height roughly of a person, and we see the arms up. So that information combined with the fact that I see this little slice here tells me that this course running along here is the same as this course. Does that make sense for how I got there? It's like not, it's a little bit like using some detective work. So then what I do is I pull down another guide. If I think you missed it, Nick, but basically the way to pull guides in from either you just pull them either from the top ruler or from the side ruler. So I just brought one down, and I'm going to place that right centered on this line that we created with the in the first image. And so then that kind of reduces our need to be doing this like more informally with like, you know, opacities and zooming in and whatever. So I'm going to select this now and bring this thing down. I'm holding shift to lock it, and that gets pinned to that. I'm going to zoom in with Alt and then scroll. Click this again, hold shift so it's locked in that axis, and just try to get this really close. And this is a kind of a happy accident that's happening where this is pretty close to horizontal already, which makes sense given the fact that like that's eye level. That's like the height of the camera. So the warping that's going to have to happen is above this. So the first thing we'll do, we're just now kind of going back to that, you know, transform, distort, bring this corner down to here. Great. I also just, for this project in particular, I'll bring down a couple guides, other guides that are kind of, you know, start on this edge of things. Um, come on. Oh, it's locking into the midpoint. Like right there. And so now this course has to align in the same way that this one does. So having a couple other guides in addition to just like the top and the bottom, I think is also useful for this. But now we're going edit. We're going transform, distort. And so now I'm kind of looking at, okay, bring this down enough that that's pretty close. So now obviously the bottom has kicked out a bunch. So we're gonna go back, I think this is where we're getting pretty close to you, or I hope you guys kind of getting the process, and I'm just kind of now doing it again and again. So I'll stop this in a moment, but this is how I'm ending up at being able to trace an elevation with known information from something that doesn't have an existing orthographic or a multi-view drawing for it. I could refine this further, but just so you guys, yeah, this is enough for this tutorial, but you can see how much closer, like we could keep going on this and actually get that like, laser lined up. But like, here we go, you have this, you can also kind of, you could do things where you're like, okay, this bottom image is actually more helpful than this image for what's happening at the base. So the other kind of thing you could do here is we could go like, I could just quickly select, say, this information. And Control I is a help. Oh wait, oops. I forgot how to flip the. So if I mask this, yeah, I want the opposite of that. There's an invert selection tool that I don't have offhand. What is it? Nice. Okay, that's great. Thank you for that, Barbie. So we can do it this way. For some reason, it's not doing it for me. Let me try the way that I just pulled up, which is Control-Shift-I. What is going on? Control-Shift-I. I don't know why this is not. Oh, there we go. It was doing it. It just I must have not been seeing the exterior or something. But yeah, either of those ways. So either Control-Shift-I or the kind of toggle that Barbie just showed off. And so yeah, so here, great. I have the courses. Like I probably could have done a more precise clip so that I know, where the verticals are, and all that. But yeah, this is obviously still a little bit rough for how I'm going to be using this, but just to show you guys that process. I use this all the time. The base of this drawing here, I'm using a photo that happens to be close to orthographic, but that can also be an actual section drawing that you've pulled up, or like some drawing that you've pulled up and you want to basically, like it might even be not for tracing, but just for like a display thing. Like maybe you have some photo that like you've sourced from online somewhere and you're like, I just like want this to fit really well with the other drawings that I'm like flipping through. That tool of just like making the verticals vertical, I use that for like every single photo on my website. Basically anytime I have like a model photo that I'm like releasing to the public is generous for the work I do, but like that is like displayed externally, I at the very least will just like make the verticals vertical if it's an interior shot. But yeah, that's it. Any questions for this workflow? Or pretty straightforward?
Do you prefer this method as opposed to using the perspective tool?
I do. I will, okay, I'm gonna stop the video. I'll show you yes, I prefer it to the perspective. Yeah, I'm gonna stop this, but then I'll show you